for me, if I don't address them at the end of the day, like all my notes are done by the end of the day because I don't want to think about it. I don't want to sleep and think about all these different things that I got to do and remind people of because it interrupts my sleep and my recovery. So getting all these little tiny bits down, it helps me. It just streamlines the process for me. And your website can do all that stuff. So if you teach it to, it's a freaking robot. You can teach it how to do it. It's a program. These things are darn smart now. So if your website's not doing that for you, consider what you want to actually get done. Consider all those small little tasks that you do throughout the day that you really don't need to do.
You're listening to the Restoring Human Movement podcast, where movement experts discuss the latest evidence-based practices to help you and your clients move with mastery. And now, your host, Dr. Sebastian Gonzales.
Hey guys, this is Dr. Sebastian Gonzales with your Restoring Human Movement podcast, and thanks again for joining me this week. Just as a little introduction to this one, if you're a patient or lay public, you might not want to tune into this one, and not to say because it's not something that I want you to hear, but at the same time, you might not care. So today, as you heard on the little preview, we're going to go into maybe some website and business development today, and this is something I have a lot of personal experience with, and I've helped a lot of young clinicians kind of think about this and be able to consider what their website can really do for them. So some of the major talking points I'm going to go through today is we're going to go basically the 6 things you should really know about your chiropractic, rehab, or PT website. And the first is your website is like an employee, but you don't have to pay it, which is amazing. All right, I'll go through each of one of these in turn. Your website can streamline your business to keep your overhead down. Your website can also help acquire new patients, and actually it'll help acquire more new patients than you really ever thought possible. Your website doesn't really have to be that large. That's number 4. Well, number 5 is your website needs to be in good health, just like we do. Number 6 is your website is kind of like a spouse. Don't ignore it. Now, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, if you're a clinician, I share a lot of I share what I learn along the way. This is like 126, 27. I'm not sure what the actual number is going to be. But a lot of the podcasts are actually interviews with industry experts. I have Michael Shacklock on. I have Dr. Stuart McGill. I have Dan John. I have Guido on as well. I had him on a couple weeks ago, as well as some people that you might not be as familiar with, but I've learned a lot from as well. Philip Snell's on here. Your boy, Philip Snell. So go through the archives because I've really learned a lot over the past year and a half of doing this podcast. And I've also learned, too, when I do the ones all on my own, kind of like this, I learned how to disseminate information a little bit better. So I'm hoping my communication is getting a little bit better, and hopefully these single podcasts, not this one in particular, but the single ones, hopefully that you guys can share them with your patients. So if you already agree with a lot of things I'm saying on these podcasts, you're like, well, cool, I trust Sebastian to speak to my patients and help me educate them about what I'm going to do with them. So that is the intention of the podcast for healthcare. For patients, the intention is to just really get them into more of an understanding of what's happening. And they're not supposed to understand everything that's going on, but just understand that they're going in the right direction so they can then release a little bit of trust onto people like us so we can help more people. Now, a little housekeeping before we get started as well. Just a reminder, I did release a book, and I will be talking about it a lot. And I want you guys to get really, really damn tired of me talking about it, because if you know me, and you don't know that I actually created a book and that it released on January 16th, then I didn't do my job. Because part of the thing about good information is if you don't get it out there and let people know about it, they're not going to find it. So this book is actually surrounding my adventure through recovering through 2 incidences of back pain, one at 16, one at 35. And what I realized through creating this book, or through these 2 experiences, is that you need to have a winning mindset for recovery. So I call it I Will Beat Back Pain, getting into a winning mindset for recovery. And although we have all of these ways that will help people get out of pain and discomfort, they don't always accept it. If you're anything like me, then you have patients who have spouses in pain and have problems. So I do have a couple patients that I can think off the top of my head where their spouse is, like, they always talk about their spouse, like, oh, it'd be so great to have, him or Joe or Martha to come in and do stuff like this. I'm like, well, why don't they? And I'm like, well, they have this going on and that going on. And what what I'm hearing is that they're just not in a winning mindset yet. They might say I'm too old for this, or I've tried everything and nothing worked. Why would this person be any different? And, I tried stretching and I heard that worked, and I tried icing and that didn't work either. So they might just be in the mindset of losing. And I think we all know that we can help a lot of people, and we want to get our hands on more people to help them. Business-wise, it'd be great because we have more money coming in the door. But realistically, we got in this profession to help people. So if you can't get them to actually approach you and accept your suggestion, then it's going to be really hard and frustrating. It's going to be a really long career. So the reason I created that book was to get people into the winning mindset. It has mental exercises and so on, so they can start approaching people like you and me and get help. So if you have someone like that, suggest it to them to get it to their spouse. It's a quick read. It's about 4 hours. It's also on audio. It's on Kindle. It's on paperback. I mean, there's literally no excuse. And it's more storytelling. It's not clinical. So hopefully it should be interesting for you guys to listen to. Now, if this is also your first time listening to this podcast, I do reveal a little bit about myself through story, through a gripe, or through a like, or just a story period. So I'm going to go through that right now, and then we'll get right into the content. All right, so I was thinking before, because there's all these nice, sexy exercises that people seem to, when they actually do it well, they say, hey, take a picture of me doing this. Like a muscle up. Like people will start taking pictures of themselves on rings doing muscle ups, and people start taking pictures of them doing snatches and overhead squats and stuff. And I thought, like the functionality of stuff, like I can understand grabbing onto some rings and swinging around, trying to get yourself back up, like you're hanging off a cliff. I can get that. I've seen movies, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody snatch a weight up, in real life. And I understand that if we're talking about power athletes, yeah, the snatch is a good power developer and blah, blah, blah. But realistically, when have you ever been like moving and decided rather than to clean a box up and then press it over your head, when did you ever think, I'm going to get this from the ground to the sky, to that overhead shelf as fast as I possibly can? And you know what? Well, now that I'm up there, you know what? I think I'm going to squat it again just to show off and then put it back up again. Like, what asshole thought that was a good idea to do that? So I can honestly say I never teach the overhead squat, and maybe I changed my mind sometime, but at the same time, like, I don't get the point. I just don't get the point. I think there's a lot of other things I could be programmed. But anyways, that's my beef with the overhead squat and the snatch. I just don't get it. For most people, I know the strength coaches are going to argue with me out there, but realistically, who decided they're going to squat that box back down again and then put it back up? Until I see it actually someone doing it and promoting the video of how functional it is, I think I'm going to stick on my stand here. All right, here we get in the content. Okay, so the 6 things that I really wanted you guys to know about websites is all from my personal experience and just kind of what I've told interns and other clinicians about website development. And I know that it's a very scary thing to jump into that type of thing, and I do have a good friend who he kind of went in full bore. He started realizing that as he's building a practice, he needed to get people in the door, and he needed to. He can go out and do marketing, but at the same time, why not? Like everyone's searching for chiropractor on Google, or in my case, Huntington Beach Chiropractor. People are searching for this thing on Google. Why can't I be first? Why shouldn't I be first? And you look at all the people who are ranking first, and you're like, well, I could do a better job than them, right? You might or might not be able to, but you probably think that in your head. I know I do. I think, well, why is that person ranking ahead of me with that? I know I can help these people better. So I always think of it like you need to create the environment for the consumers to find you. All right. And a lot of us are really good at going out there and like going and lifting weights and talking to people and joining running groups and going to swim and just talking to people at events. And those are good and fine. That's just one way. But that's also a lot of time spent, and you have to commit to that stuff. And what I found from my own personal experiences that when I went out to work at a local CrossFit gym, I liked it. It was fun, but sometimes I didn't want to go. And after that, I would go on in a running group, and I just didn't want to go all the time. I just wanted some time to myself. And I'm not like an introvert or anything by any means, but sometimes you got your day off or you got your free time, you just want to hang and do what you want to do. So it's tough and it's challenging, and a website can really help you do that. So here's the 6 things, again, that I think you should really know. And actually, I already mentioned that at the beginning, so I'll just start with number 1, is that your website is like an employee that you really don't have to pay. And, actually, before I actually go into the stuff, I'll tell you what my adventure was with my website, because it's really molded and changed a lot over the years. And if you've heard some of the other podcasts, I have mentioned that I started a website really early on in my career. And I remember in term 7, I think it was 6 or 7, we were in probably OBGYN class where, in California, we're not going to really do that. So I can half-heartedly listen to this stuff and write things. So I'd get there on my laptop and I'd start writing stuff. And I started writing out a little workflow of how my website would go, and when people come into the site, what trail do they have to follow to get to the thing they need to find. Because my intention was I wanted to write some really cool articles with some research backing that would then help me later on when someone says, hey, why should I let you work on my neck? I'll be like, well, because this, and that, and this research says that, and that. And here's the things that I would want you to know, that's the risk reward and so on. And I can always have that conversation with people, but as you know, if you've listened to these other podcasts, I like to scratch my own itch, and I like to not repeat conversations if I don't have to. I love having conversations with people, but at the same time, I don't need to have the same conversation with people. I can only imagine what Uber drivers do. It's like, hey man, how long you been driving tonight? Where did you start at? Did you go anywhere far? What's your most interesting person tonight? How old will that get? All right, because if you've been in practice I've been in practice for 10 years now, you get a lot of the same questions. And I dig helping people, but I don't always want to answer the same questions. So I think for some reason, deep down in the surface, I knew that in school. So I started creating these articles. Plus, it gave me a really good opportunity to go through the research at the time and formulate how I can then disseminate this information and digest it for people. Because as we all know, you can't talk about spondylolisthesis and spondylitis and all that kind of stuff and anatomical structures to patients, because they just turn off a little bit. It's like speaking a different language to them. It is a different language. It's Latin. So really breaking down the information and speaking it to them in their own terms is what the practice really was. And in the beginning, I wanted my site to be more informational. At the time, my dad, actually, he still is. He's a dentist. And he is not very techie at all. So I don't know how he came up with this idea. But so back in 2008 or 7, I think it was, he can't even, we'd come home, when I was in high school, and my dad would be just waiting to have one of us put a DVD in to hit the play button, because he didn't know how to use the DVD player. I remember in middle school, we had an answering machine, and the thing would always be blinking when we get home. And it's like, why didn't you listen to these messages? And he's like, well, because I didn't know how to play them. When he finally learned how to play them, he didn't know how to rewind them or make them so they blinked again. So we'd miss a lot of messages. The point is, he wasn't really tech savvy, but he said, you know what you should probably do? You should do a website. And I was like, okay, I don't see big point, but let's just try this thing. So I went into a gung ho. And as I started to create more videos when I was in my my internship clinic, I realized that I was showing some people some of the same exercises. I would show them like a side bridge and a cook hip lift and a pull down, a single arm dumbbell row. These are ones that I showed pretty consistently, dead bugs, bird dogs. So I did little videos of them, and I thought, well, where should I put these things? And they were on YouTube, obviously, and they're still there, and those videos I think are really crappy now. But at the time, I created a whole page on my site, which will actually that actually hosted all those little videos, and I can write text around them. And lo and behold, what I found was that eventually people found them on Google. People found them through search. And I never thought that. I never thought that would happen. And in fact, if you guys go on Google right now and you search ulnar nerve, and it doesn't matter where you're at, I think if you search ulnar nerve, within the top 3, sometimes the first one, or ulnar nerve entrapment, you'll find me. It'll say 16 passive care strategies so you can sleep better. And that page, for some reason, I didn't even want to have I didn't even strive to have a big old ulnar nerve page, and I didn't really care about it a lot. And all of a sudden, people started asking me and emailing me from all over the place about their ulnar nerve or hand numbness. So they started finding that page, and they found some of the pictures on it, and they found the videos on it. And I thought, why are these people finding this thing? But you know what? If they found this, what else can they find? So I started making more and more content. Now, originally the website was again very educational, and I didn't really have any plans for it. But so I just created content for the sake of creating it, and I can just basically direct people directly to those links to those pages. But as time went on, and we did a website redesign about 2 years ago, and I did another one like way earlier than that as well. I started realizing that the website had a lot more power than just directing people via email to those links. So in the beginning, it was really shitty. It was like a blog style design. I had some stock photos. It was very busy, and I remember in the beginning with this website, I think it was called the Incognito Blue theme. If you guys remember that one, it was very standard, very basic. And people would go on the site, and I would have people tell me all the time. They're like, "Whoa, your site has a lot of shit on it," and I'm confused. And they would just bounce off the page. Bounce rate, by the way, is when people go to one page and they don't go further in your site and they just leave. It's not a good sign for your Google ranking. So they would get really frustrated with the page, and they couldn't even find a Book Now button. They couldn't find a phone number. So, but it still ranked well, which is funny. So I was afraid to change it. Eventually, I did change it, and we made it a lot more user friendly, and we made it so people would. Excuse me, I just burped on that. I'm gonna keep going now. We'd make it so people can find the information a little bit easier. So consider it kind of like when you walk into a grocery store and you look around, you've never been to a grocery store before. You might wonder, where the hell are the eggs, But if someone were to place you right in front of the eggs, it'd be okay. Or what if, how long do you walk around the grocery store before you before you find it? You probably start in the perimeter because everyone kind of knows the perimeter of the website, or perimeter of the supermarket is where you would find the eggs, or at least in a cold aisle, at least in America. But when you've never been in a grocery store before, you wouldn't know. So when you have these new visitors to your website, you kind of have to guide them a little bit. And if you guys do want to experience my website a little bit, it's p2sportscare.com. That's P the letter to the number, sports is plural, care.com. You go through, and most people won't go past that first little, they call it above the fold. It's the area in your screen which shows without you having to move the page. And on mine, there's a hamburger at the top. If you're on your phone, all of them have that navigation hamburger. But most people don't really look at that. They look at kind of the stuff in the middle of the screen. And I really have two areas there, two options. It tells you a little bit about where you are to confirm you're in the right place. After that, you really have two buttons. I'm a professional and I'm a patient. They might not be a patient of mine, but they're certainly not a professional, so hopefully they click on that. By the way, the verbiage and stuff I'm always tinkering with, so I might change. So there's really two options. So I want to funnel them through that grocery store to at least get to the perimeter, all right? Once you get to the perimeter, maybe I have other directional stuff. And if you go through my site, you'll see that when you're into the patient page, there should be 3 people, and it's a little bit harder on phone because you have to scroll a little bit to find all 3 images. But on a browser, on a desktop, you'll see 3 people. You'll see a baseball player, you'll see a runner, and you'll see a golfer. And you'll see different areas of their body which are highlighted. At that point, it's like, okay, I know that I'm looking for eggs, all right, and I see I know I'm looking for elbows, and I see the elbow. I'm not a baseball player, I'm a golfer, I'll try that, right? Or, hey, I'm a runner, or maybe I'm not a runner, but I'm a triathlete and I have a foot problem. Let's try that. So now they're getting deeper into the page, and they're getting directed to what they came for. Because that's the hardest thing, is when people get in and they don't know where the stuff is, they bounce and they leave. So this is how my site kind of improved. And as your site gets larger, you might want to implement something like a search function. Wikipedia is pretty much like this. Wikipedia, you go in, there's not any of that directional stuff, but there's definitely a search function in there. And most people have been to Wikipedia once where they realize, well, shoot, I'm just going to search something. And then a bunch of stuff pops up that's kind of curated for what they asked for. So there's a couple different ways to do this thing. So now my website, at this point, just so you know, rough numbers, is I get about 62,000 unique visitors a month. Okay, that's a lot of people. And there's a saying that the money is where the eyes are. And so there's eyes coming to the website now. They might not be local, but there's certainly people that came there not for groceries, not for buying jackets. They came there because they have some type of musculoskeletal problem, right? So can I help them? Now you're into your clinical part. But if they didn't get there in the first place, you're not going to help them. So I'm hoping that through this adventure today that you guys are able to learn a little bit more about your website and figure out what you want to do with it, so that hopefully you can get those people to come into your grocery store as well. Again, they might not find the eggs right away, but after they get there, now they can start searching a little bit, and now you can refine the way you're directing them. So the first thing we're going to go through the website, which is the part I love, is that your website is basically like an employee, and you have to know that. And you have to know that you really don't have to pay them. Because I know a lot of people consider their website kind of like a virtual business card. They're like, I don't know, I don't want to spend too much on the site because it's just a business card, and it has like my phone number and address and like directions and a Google map and a picture of me smiling, in a clinic jacket, and that's all it is. And it's like, no, that's much more than that. I want you guys to know this straight up front that I, at this point, I think over the last year, I think I probably spent less than 1 hour a month doing external marketing, meaning going out and talking to MDs and gyms and trainers and stuff. Like, I do talk to trainers and strength coaches, but it's usually through the mechanism of one of my patients having a strength coach, so I'll contact them and talk. But I don't go out and like cold call that much anymore. And not to say cold calling is bad, or going and meeting people is bad. It's just a different thing. And for I enjoy doing something a little bit more sustainable here, and I like to create a nice piece of real estate on the internet where people can actually find me, so I'm not always searching people down. So the employee that I'm talking about, this website is like an employee. It's like your business has a 24/7 outreach program. It has the, what do you guys call them? That person that goes out of your office and goes and networks and like takes MDs to lunch and wants to set up meetings for you and all that kind of stuff. They're one of those people, but you don't have to pay this person. Sure, you might have to pay web hosting. What is it, like $100 a year for most people? By the way, when your web traffic gets up, like mine does, it jumps up because users aren't free. They gotta when they come in, you gotta pay. I think after 25,000 users that I have, I gotta pay a little bit more. So I pay roughly about $115 a month for web hosting right now. Now that's because I have a bunch of people. But back in the day, it was like about $100. That's probably where most of you guys are going to be right now. For the actual URLs, it can cost you like about $10 a year. And if you have anyone doing any work to it, maybe a couple $100, $300, $400 a month, maybe, and that's to be basic stuff. And it's not something you can't teach your office staff, or like sometimes people and kids have blogs. So you just get them to do a little bit too. I personally did a lot of my website work in the beginning. Like I said, I started in term 6 or 7. I learned how to resize pictures, drop in text, and reformat stuff a little bit. But there are things that I don't really do because I'm not good at it and I'm not efficient at it. So I decided to pay those ones out to people and divvy that work out to people. But I create all the content myself, which is the part where you guys should probably start. All right. You got to teach almost like your employees the scripts. And this is what you guys are doing on the website. You're creating a script that as each person encounters your website, that they are learning about their body. They're learning about, let's just say, our foot problem. They're learning how single leg stance affects foot problems. They're learning about how the small intrinsic arch affects it. And more importantly, is how you can help them through that. And you have to express your personality through that. And they want to see that it's not an automated machine. And I think that we all know that going through WebMD, you go through and you get the same shit. All right, you get or you get the price method. You get, hey, maybe you have a problem that you want to see a surgeon for, and maybe you have cancer. And it's not very personable either. I tend to think that people read novels and they like podcasts like this because they like to get to know people. Again, that's why I share my story, a part of my story in the beginning. The website's the same. It should be an extension of you. You're basically doubling and cloning yourself, but on the website. Does that make sense to everybody? So your website is basically like an employee who can educate the public and who can convince them to come in. Now, you have to also make it very easy for them to be able to come in from that. So that is where you're going to start creating like book now buttons, online booking, or you want to create maybe an email funnel, which is fine too, or ways for people to contact you via a form. I personally don't like doing that because I like to keep it a little bit more automated. I believe that people buy airfare online. They can certainly book an appointment, but that's just my thought on it. But there's many ways to do this thing. And I know that some people are not going to want to actually book stuff online. They're not going to book their appointment online. And I've had probably, maybe, I'd say like 5% of the people who contact and come into my office feel that way. Most other people are very, very cool with it. Like I said, they book airfare, they book other things online. They put their credit card into Amazon, for God's sake. I mean, they put their information out there. I know some people will have a kind of like a beef with putting their credit card online. But realistically, again, I mean, was it Equifax or Aspirion? Like, one of them got hacked. Like, our stuff's already out there. Like, who cares about a simple credit card? Plus, if you get fraud on it, it's like, you don't pay it. The credit card company does. So I try to explain all that stuff to them if they have a problem with it, and try to get them to integrate into our system a little bit, just to streamline things. Because when you book through our website, you get the new patient paperwork sent to you. You get a reminder the day before and the morning of. You get links to information that I want you to read before you come in. After you've booked a couple appointments on there as well, has all your credit card online, and after you've booked a couple appointments on there, you actually get access to other type of content. Like if I suggested a corrective exercise, like a bird dog, I've already created some of this content where people can actually view it again. And I'll use similar queuing. It won't be exactly the same, but just so they can get familiar with the stuff, so there's not really any hiccups in their rehab process. Another thing you can do with your website in regards to kind of making it generate income for your business is you can sell stuff online. Now, I know there's a lot of people who are they think sales, ooh, that's bad. You know, like it's not what we do. We help people, and you know what? Like I thought the same thing a long time ago. And sales, like you're always selling yourself in life. You try to get a girlfriend, a boyfriend, you're selling yourself. It's a presentation of what you can do for that other person. So let's drop that whole sales thing. Just make sure that everyone's just understand that we're selling good stuff. Okay, but selling good stuff online is just selling informational products, right? At least that's what I do. I get a lot of, because I have so many people that contact my website and email me, I can't possibly email all of them back. And plus too, like from a legal standpoint, I can't suggest things for people who are like, I've had people contact me from like Dubai and like Arkansas, and like, unless they come in, I can't really help them. But I can certainly show them, kind of reveal what I do in my office for these things. So I've created some informational products to kind of show them that maybe with a knee condition, we have to clear out the ankle and the hip. And we just have to make sure that person can appropriately stand on one leg. And maybe hip strength or glute strength is important. So there's a video on that. So I've created stuff like this, as well as, like you heard in the beginning of the podcast, there's a book. And there's also there's a course that reveals how I manage flexion intolerant and extension intolerant low back pain. There's one how I address crooked squatting. There's one how I address sports hernias and oblique strains, because I've got a lot of questions about those because I have pages that rank. So these are all things that can sell online, and there is again, I'm not an attorney. There might be a little bit of liability with this in regards to giving information. But I know that I've personally gone through an attorney who investigated a bunch of this stuff, and they basically said that, if you present that you're not establishing a relationship and they need to go see somebody, these are all informational products. And I know that people that have, there's nothing stopping the public from buying the books that we read in school. So I kind of formulate it that way. But that's kind of on that part right there. But your website really can work for you like an employee, and you don't have to pay them anymore. It's very minimal fee. You don't have to bother them. They don't ask you for breaks. They don't ask you for bonuses. They just do the work, and you can tell it exactly how to do it, and it continues to do it year after year. And I think I've said this in podcast 114. I talk about YouTube operating the same way. You get this little army of marketing people out there, of automated marketing people out there, and you really do get a lot of business from it. Now, on the flip side of that same thing, on number 2, we have your website can streamline your business to keep overhead down. Now, considering what the website's doing for me, it's basically taking phone calls for the most part. Actually, I do have an answering service, so I will reveal that. I have an answering service that we will call them back if need be. I try to do a lot of the phone calls now. I do have someone working the front desk part-time. But we try to make those phone calls back mainly just to to show face and to be able to build trust if they haven't booked online already. So, but when they call, they're actually told to book online. And so cutting that down a little bit, cutting the call time down. And so when people call you and they tell you about their story, which I like to hear their story because I like to hear what the patients are experiencing so I can communicate better with them when they come in. But also too, it does suck up your time. And also if the doctor's not talking on the phone, then your front desk is, right? So that's part of the thing right there. Also too, there's the credit card payment. I have people pay online before they come in, especially new people. That cuts down the amount of possibility of dropout because they've really committed and paid. And I know that if I paid a fair amount of money for a visit, I wouldn't miss it at all. I would show up every single damn time because I know that no-show policy is in place right there. So also too, gathering the credit card when they come in to be able to pay for their stuff. Their credit card's already in the system, which then is protected so that no one can take it. But also too, it doesn't even show my office staff what the credit card is. So it protects it that way as well. So there's a lot of that money dance at the end of the end of the session that I don't like to do, and my office staff really doesn't like to do either. So it kind of takes that out of the way there. And I know that if you've already done this money dance with a lot of people, typically it takes about 5 minutes or so to process them out. So that's another lag time between you and the next patient. There's other small tasks that it addresses as well. Like I said, they get the new paperwork sent to them, so that's another email, which doesn't need to happen. They might need the address. That email happens, so it doesn't need to happen again. And I don't know about you guys, but I know for me, when I have all these small little nitpicky things to do, like when we owned a coffee business, there was people that said, you know what, I don't have the money right now. I don't have cash right now. So maybe can I give it to you tomorrow? And we had a couple people that told us this. They're like, hey, you know what? Can you just email me and remind me of that? And when you got like 10 little small things to do, all of a sudden you put all these little Post-it notes on your Mac computer, and then you have to address them all at the end of the day. For me, if I don't address them at the end of the day, like all my notes are done by the end of the day because I don't want to think about it. I don't want to sleep and think about all these different things that I got to do and remind people of because it interrupts my sleep and my recovery. So getting all these little tiny bits down, it helps me. It just streamlines the process for me. And your website can do all that stuff. So if you teach it to, it's a freaking robot. You can teach it how to do it. It's a program. These things are darn smart now. So if your website's not doing that for you, consider what you want to actually get done. Consider all those small little tasks that you do throughout the day that you really don't need to do. And I know a lot of you that are listening to this podcast, you probably you do extra for your patients, right? If you think there's a podcast or a video or an article that might help them, you probably email it to them. And if you want, some people, I know one guy who texts all his people before they actually come in to the prior day to confirm with them. All this stuff can happen automatically. And I know that we're going extreme with our customer care, which is great and awesome. I think patients love that because they realize that we're different and they're not getting automated machines all the time. By the way, you're probably thinking, you're an automated machine. No. So if they were emailing me back or call back, again, I do call, but it decreases the need to ask her for that kind of stuff. So we always do call back, and we always are friendly, and we always give them the information they need, but a lot of the information is presented automatically. So, and it's very easy to get to us. So if you guys are looking to address something like that and make your life easier in your practice, I think you can really get your website to do that. So write all the things down that you want your website to do, and then we just had to figure out how to do it. Now, number 3 I'll cover is your website can help you acquire new patients, and really it can help you acquire more new patients than you really ever thought possible. And again, just like I said in the beginning, your website can be literally alive. It doesn't need to be a virtual business card. It can gather patients for you. Like I said in the beginning, it can also help you book them, take payments, and disseminate information to them when you set it up right. Now, if you don't know the first thing about a website, you probably won't know anything about search engine optimization and driving traffic to your site, which is a very foreign thing for a lot of people to really understand. And I get it. I've been there. I've probably spent, if I've spent, I know I've spent more than 100 hours of clinical education. Let's just say I spent 100 hours of learning clinical education. I probably spent about 5 to 10 hours easily of search engine research, just kind of learning how to get the information found because you can have great information and great clinical resources and expertise and be able to help people, but no one can find you. You're not gonna see anybody. Okay, so just the basics here, and if hopefully you guys are already familiar with search engine optimization, or SEO, the term, but basically it means that when you search on Google or Yahoo or Bing, what's being found is your stuff ranking? If you're searching Huntington Beach Chiropractor, is it found? If you're searching low back pain rehab, is your website being found? And if it is being found, great. You don't have to do anything to it. If it's not being found, why is it not being found? So there's a couple of different considerations with this, and they say there's always this protected, secret Google algorithm, but realistically, they know a couple things about it, and some people run these A/B tests just to see what works best when they do all these new Google updates. So I'll let you know some of the little bits of what I've found, anyways. First thing is, let's just say we're going to talk about a condition called, let's just say we're talking about knee pain in runners, because one of my pages does rank really well for that, and I think it's called the 7 most common diagnoses for knee pain in runners, or while running or after running. So there is obviously multiple different reasons for knee pain with running, and we consider what a normal conversation would be surrounding the conversation about, or surrounding the topic of a knee pain with runners. You might say a bunch of different words, but in higher frequency than others. So let's just say if we're talking to a patient about knee pain while running, we're talking about, well, there's a condition called condylomalacia patella, which also might be called patellofemoral pain, which is a wearing of the cartilage under the knee, which happens a lot of times. It's the most common reason for presentation of knee pain in runners to a sports injury practice. There's also meniscal tears, most of the time in the medial side or the inner side. There's also things like patellar tendonitis, which is often confused with jumper's knee, and blah, 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 right? So there's all the different words you can use, and what that kind of what that makes is a word cloud. It's like a bunch of different words that you said in different densities that all group together. And so when you actually go into Google and search and you put in, and I'll actually type this up right now, let's see, video game system in the 90s Super Mario. So I didn't say Nintendo, but the first thing that comes up is there's a picture. It says original Nintendo NES. Then there's Nintendo Super NES Classic Edition. And then you scroll down, it says there's Wikipedia, 1990s video games, which there's Nintendo in those, Super Mario Brothers, and the third thing is someone selling Nintendo on Amazon. And you scroll down, there's much, much more. And if you search into images, you're going to see a bunch of pictures of the classic Super Nintendo and Nintendo. And probably if I would have said gray and vintage or original, it probably would have gone straight to the Nintendo and original NES. So what that really means is, so if someone's searching for knee pain, they're not just always going to get the stuff that says knee pain just over and over and over again, like this high density with the word knee pain, but they're going to get other stuff surrounding it too. So that's that kind of cloud presentation, and I think what the original thought was that Google's kind of going towards improving the experience of the users, because if they want people to use Google rather than Bing and Yahoo and so on. So they're trying to improve the experience, almost like if you were to converse with a person. It's like, hey doc, what's a reason for knee pain? You say condylomalacia patella or runner's knee. And so that's the kind of experience of popping up those searches. So what I did was I basically created a big old article with the big old word cloud with that, and the 7 different most common diagnoses with that. Now, there's lots of different things you can put in this article. You can put what causes knee pain in runners. What causes, when you get in the condylomalacia patella section, maybe you say, what is condylomalacia patella? What's the anatomy of the knee? What's the mechanics of condylomalacia patella? And when you go through a Google search on this, let's just see. Let's just go on this real quick. This is all raw. So let's look up condylomalacia patella. And all I'm going to do is go scroll all the way to the bottom, and at the bottom it says related searches to condylomalacia patella. So we have condylomalacia patella treatment, condylomalacia patella exercises, condylomalacia patella symptoms. I should have picked an easier word. And then recovery time, surgery, bracing, taping, home remedies for condylomalacia patella. So these are all related searches. And actually, too, if you go to the top, and you click on that search bar again without even actually adding anything into it, all these things are going to pop up as well. So these are things people are looking for. So you can easily answer these things in an article, and all of a sudden you got a badass thing that's probably going to rank if it's not for a super competitive term. So let me rephrase that again. Let me say it one more time. If you're looking for lumbar spine pain, if you're looking for low back pain, you're probably not going to rank as easy as if you did. I did one recently on Mane syndrome. Who the hell's looking for Mane syndrome, right? The search volume is going to be much lower, but you have a higher potential ranking. And so when someone finally gets through that, now they're on your site, all right? And they're on your site, and they're looking at Mane syndrome. They're like, holy shit, this guy knows what Mane syndrome is, right? And now I have to guide them to that supermarket. So now they're in your door. Where are they going to find Mane syndrome in your website, right? Hopefully you dropped them right in front of it. If you didn't, maybe you need to get them to it via a directory. If they're on your site now and they're on that page, you have to make sure they don't bounce off real quick. This is where it comes down into copywriting or being able to entertain the person. And this is why I've been improving my skill set of learning how to storytell. And hopefully I'm getting better through the podcast with it. But I actually bought a book recently, basically how to tell stories better and engage your audience, and just kind of getting to some of the secrets they use with Hollywood screenwriting. Because really, when you go through these things, you still got to emotionally entertain and hook these people. So validate that they're on the right site or they're at the right page. Show them that you can help, and basically go through the process of what they might or might not feel. Maybe tell a story, right? And once they get through there, they're going to realize, holy shit, Dr. Joe is the best. Like, I need to see this guy. Where's he at? Oh, he's in Kentucky? Well, I'm about 200 miles from Kentucky. I think I'll go there, right? Oh, there's a book now button there? Let's book now. Oh, I got to put my card in? Oh, cool. Great. Let's do all this stuff, right? They're sold on you. So the first thing starts, though, with SEO. And like I said, your website can acquire patients more than you thought possible if you just get a couple good pages to rank. This is where now we get down into niching. So you need to be good at, obviously, we're sports chiropractors or sports PTs, and we're good at a lot of shit. But realistically, and I'm really bad at this, so don't use me as an example. Philip Snell's a great example of this. He is the back guy, right? Dr. Stuart McGill is a great example. He is the back biomechanics guy. And I think there's a guy down in San Diego called the running doc. There's podiatrists are great. You go there when you have a foot or ankle problem. So niche down a little bit and focus on what you want to see, and then maybe find out the keywords that are going to rank the easiest for you and start there. Then you can start tackling the big boys, and get your domain ranking a little bit higher. Domain ranking is a whole different thing. I think right now my domain ranking is about 35. Let's say YouTube is like 97. The top is 100. Someone who started their website is going to be like a 1. And it's taken me a long time to get to 35. So if you find anybody, if you go on to like Ma's domain ranking and you check out p2sportscare.com, you'll probably see I'm around the 30s again. It's different based upon each platform. Then you do yours, you're going to say, holy shit, I'm 3, right? And what that says is it's telling Google or the search engines that my site is reputable. And it helps my site, it helps my pages and content rank a little bit better. So that's a thing that you need to work on in the future to come. But that'll help you gain patience, all right? And I've spent years doing it, and I love doing it. It's fun. It's great. Part of this podcast goes on there. It gets transcribed and goes on there, right? I write articles, I do videos, and those are all on there too. Now, next thing about acquiring new patients to your website is that you can actually run ads. And I don't like doing Google ads, and we played with Facebook ads a little bit, but apparently there's an issue with healthcare related stuff on there, so we kind of ditched that a little bit. What I've had good success on in the past is YouTube. So I got about 14,000 YouTube subscribers right now. A lot of my videos, my top videos are like 1.6 million, I think, right now, roughly. But most of them are around like the tens to 20, 30,000s, which is great. So those things drive traffic back as well, especially if there's a call to action in there. If they're looking for more information about a hip problem, they can go straight to the site for it. And YouTube provides clickable links on their videos. They're called cards or end cards. So what I actually did recently, and you have to check in with me and see how this is progressing, is that I realized, so last year, if you were following along, I created I was doing a video a day, And I know I could do it. I actually stopped around June because I didn't stop because I couldn't do it. I just realized that it wasn't worth it. And they weren't being found. So I needed to make sure that they were getting found. So I just stopped the whole project altogether. And now I do one a week. But in the meantime, though, and this is kind of that in past podcasts I've talked about, just create something and you can use it later. So I created a one video a day. And a couple of them were how to get out of a car without hurting your back, how to pick up objects without hurting your back, how to, I don't think I did this on there publicly, but I did it privately, how to put on your shoes, how to get out of bed, how to roll over in bed, how to sleep better without having back pain. So there was a bunch of back pain month in there. There's also hamstring and knee month and so on. So I reused some of these, but I was promoting some of the stuff nationally over the last month or so, and they've really been hitting well. There's one called 21 Hip Mobility Drills, which is really great. I think I have like 150 likes on that. I think about, if I had to guess, about 30,000 views. It's a newer video. And I think like 1 or 2 thumbs down. There's just some haters out there. So those ones were going, and I started realizing, I'm like, this is showing in Denver and, Philadelphia. And like, I surrounded my office too, but I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just use some of those simple how-to ones where I wasn't really trying to sell anything. I was just pure informational. Like I just teach someone how to roll over in bed, and how to get out of bed without having a trigger in their back symptoms when they have a back condition. So with those videos, I sent around in the office with a 50 mile radius. And now through those videos, when people watch them, they have a potential to watch other videos that I actually created too. And through those, which I haven't created yet, I'm still working on this, I will probably shuttle them back to my site for something that is maybe a free giveaway. Or maybe an article on back pain related to the stuff they've already been watching. So now they've been to my site and they're like, holy shit, Homeboy's in Huntington Beach and I'm only 50 miles away. Who are they going to go to? They keep seeing the same guy. And by the way, these YouTube videos for the ads, you can get them down to 1 cent a click for a 30-second view. 1 cent, right? Google ads for Huntington Beach Chiropractor are going to run you like $9 a click. All right, so these things are cheap, but I bet the reason it's so cheap is because most people are not going to make videos, right? I love making videos, so they're useful to me. So I can potentially get these people back to my site. Let's see. Let's just say I'm not going to reveal my exact prices, but let's just say if someone were to come back and say $200 for an exam. Think in your head, I don't know the exact math on this. How many times can I have someone watch these videos within a 50-mile radius for 1 cent a click and not have anyone come in and have one person come in and break even? I think the math is like 2,000 times, maybe 20,000 times. I forget. It's a lot. So I can show that video a ton of times, right? And for all you out there who are frustrated with Yelp and like you get your reviews, they get taken away and get taken down, at least I got a video at the end that has views and likes. So it ranks better anyways, and people really like the shit out of it. And now they're back onto my page, and they can easily book, they can pay, they can come in, and now I have a new patient, all right? So these are all things that are helpful. Pictures kind of do the same. You can disseminate them out, am I saying the right word? Push them out to Pinterest, all right? So all of the ranking stuff for your site to acquire new patients, if you're looking for a Google search, that's one thing. There's lots of factors in there, such as user experience signals, time on page, bounce rate, shares, so on. If you're looking to get people to your site via another means, via another platform, YouTube or Instagram, you have to offer them something a lot of times to go to your site, learn more, maybe get a piece of information for free, a PDF, or some type of lead magnet, we call it. But I've definitely had a lot of success with getting patients from my website. I mean, I've woken up at times, and I have like 2 or 3 new patients that have booked and paid, and they show up and they have their paperwork, and it's amazing. So you can get your website to do this, and you can really keep your overhead low, so you don't have to hire a bunch of people, right? And it's even better if you don't take insurance because you don't have to do any of this super billing stuff. So the next thing is your website does not have to be large because it sounds like there's a lot of stuff going on here, right? Now, my website right now is probably, if I had to guess, 250, 300 pages. There's a lot. And part of the reason is because I have a podcast, and each one of these, I have 26 podcasts now. And majority of them have a show notes page links and so on. So I keep adding to it, but we try to keep it organized. But you don't really need all that stuff if you're not going to do that type of thing. One of the pages or one of the sites that I really follow is called Backlinko. And if you guys are looking to really start out on this venture of starting to use your website in a way that I do, go to backlinko.com. And I think they only have 14, 15 pages, honestly. And he's very public about how he creates his content and how he shares it and like what his visitors are and so on. And I think he's got less than like 20 pages, but he makes just massively helpful pages. And like I said, I have about 250 or so, but realistically, the major ones that people come and visit, there's probably only about 20 to 30 of them. I don't know exactly off the top of my head. And if you scroll down into the patient one, if you go through and say, I'm a patient, and you go through and you see these articles, that's usually where people land. And that's where people actually come into the site. They don't always come in from the homepage. So, but when you're starting out, if you're getting people to come into your page, think about how they're gonna experience your site. And some people might come in through the homepage. So let's just lay out some of the major pages you need. You need a homepage. It needs to be patient-centric, okay? They probably don't care everything about who you are and what you do. They just have to trust you enough, all right? So don't make it all about you. Make it about them. Think about what they care about. And I know that one tool I use is that after I write sentences, if I'm really mindful about when I'm writing things, is I try to think about after I say something like, like I went on a trip to Cabo. The patient will say, or the reader will say, what's it have to do with me? How do I benefit from this? Because they're there for their own reasons, right? I went to Cabo. I went to Cabo because, let's see. God, I had nothing to follow up on that. So I would scrap that whole sentence probably, right? But the first page, I might focus more on what the benefits they will get. Also, you probably need an about page, again, so they know a little bit about you. A nice picture, maybe your office staff. Not necessarily all your degrees and credentials, because they really don't care. They probably just want to know your personal story, and they want to know that you can help them. FAQs, like how much does it cost? What should they expect? Where's the paperwork? How many times are they going to see you? Maybe address all the major questions that people typically have, like they're scared that they're going to have to see a chiropractor or PT forever, right? So they want to know all that kind of stuff. Maybe a contact page as well. I wouldn't suggest putting your email specifically. I'd probably put a contact form because that gets rid of a lot of spammers. And conditions pages. And the conditions pages, I think, it's the hardest part, and that's the part I started when I was in grad school. It's where you start to put all your information together about certain conditions. Again, you're niching down. And when people interact with my page, typically they come in through these condition pages. And when we talked about the section above, we talked about acquiring new patients. People are probably going to find your stuff because they're searching for things that they care about. How to decrease lower back pain after getting out of bed. How to decrease hamstring tightness, best hamstring stretches for runners. They're looking for this kind of stuff. So they're going to enter your page through your site through that. And they're going to be on that page. And now, remember, you're in the grocery store. They came in and someone just plopped them right down in front of the bakery. Where do they want to, you wanted to find the eggs. So lead them to the eggs, even within that page. And I'm guessing the eggs in this analogy is that you need them to book. So you need to take them through a flow of that page to be able to get them to come in to see you. So informational pages are amazing. They're great. I dig it, right? But at the end of the day, you got to get them to come in. And I know that I've struggled with a little bit of this over the last year or so since our website is really bumped up in traffic, is that since I got to pay more hosting fees now, I love that people are learning shit on my page, but realistically, I got to pay for you guys to learn shit on my page. It's a bad business model, right? I'm losing money when people come to my page. So I need someone to book. So I need to guide them through that process. So just to recap on that, your site doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be quality, and just be mindful of the flow. And I usually have people put out a piece of paper. When people enter, just write down little boxes of the pages that you plan to create and like how they're going to flow from here and there. Maybe from the home page, you divvy off into a couple different options, right? I have patients in healthcare. Where are they going to go, and what's that page going to look like? What's going to be on that page? What if they enter the website through that page? How do we get them back to the main page or to the booking page? So those are think of it like a little algorithm. You have to find out what that person needs to hear at that point to get to the other click. You have to get them to the next click. You don't want them to leave the page and go to the other person that was in that search, all right? You want to find everything that they can out of your page. Now, the next one, we're going to go into your website needs to be in good health. Now, this is a little bit more techie, so I won't spend too much time on it, but just know that your website can't just sit there and rot. So some of the things that I can do this very quickly on my site, and some of the other things are big projects, but number one is updates. When you go through your page, or you go through the back end of your website, and it has all these little icon dots and so on, and it says that you got like 15 updates, update them, man. Like, these are people's plugins and other things which they're updating their security features, they're updating other glitches in their system, so update them, all right? It just takes a couple links here and there. By the way, whole tangent conversation, but I suggest that in my personal experience, you go with a WordPress page for most of you. If you're on like a Wix or a Squarespace or just, I would just consider ditching the thing, man. Like it's from all the web people that I've experienced, except for one, pretty much everyone said go to WordPress. It's more user friendly. It'll function better. There's a lot more things you can do to it, and it'll rank better. Okay. Next thing, site speed. If your site takes forever to load, people will typically drop off. All right, they're like, "What's wrong with this page? It's broken." They'll drop it off. There's a couple things which will create a slower site. Number one is large image sizes. So images, I think, don't quote me on this, I think they have to be under 200, 225 KB. So if you got like megabytes, like you got like your portrait mode on your phone and you just post them right to your site, you're slowing your site down. And there's ways to test this, like GT Metrics. I think Google has a site speed test that you can do, and they're free. So I would go through there and test there, and it might give you some recommendations to do. Some things you really can control on there or cannot control are, like, say if I embed a YouTube video, if it's slower, and that's kind of a YouTube's thing, I can't really control third-party sites if I embed it in there, but I can certainly control the stuff that I put in my site. And another consideration, too, is as your page gets larger, you might actually slow down, too. One of my pages ranks so damn well, again, that ulnar nerve one, but it's so massive, and there's so many pictures and so many videos that it slows it down. So it's kind of a pivotal point on there. It's like, well, it's ranking well, so why should I bother fixing it? If I fix it and take some of these pictures away, it might make it faster, but it might not rank well. So there's going to be a pivot point in there. So I don't know all the answers in that, but that's just what goes through my head on a weekly basis on these things as I create new things. But site speed is really important. Next thing too, and I'll touch on this really quickly, is that it has to be mobile friendly. Google has put out a thing about mobile indexing, so you need to make sure your site is very mobile friendly. If it's not, if you look at it on your phone, it looks like crap, you need to address that really, really quickly, or else all this work is for naught. Next is relevance. If your content is not relevant or up to date, people can tell a lot of times. Like, you got old pictures, old videos. Like, I have some really old videos on YouTube, which I really don't promote, but I leave them there. But I certainly don't put them on my site. And you can tell it's old. It was like an old, whatever you call those mini cassettes. And it was granularly, like, it just wasn't clear, It's like showing up to a movie and it's just old granularly film and there's no sound. Like, you expect better than that. So you're like, this is bullshit. And you just leave, unless it was intended to be that way, like an old World War II film in the beginning, like when they have all those credits of these old pictures and planes dropping bombs and so on. Like, that's okay because it's within relevance. So, but I think you could do much better than having old crappy videos and pictures. So update those things and make sure they're sized appropriately. It'll make it a lot prettier as well. And I remember in the beginning where I said that my site was really, it was confusing. There's a lot going on. There's lots of links everywhere. Make it clean. If you go onto my site, it's really clean. And yeah, I'm sacrificing a couple things in my sites. Again, it's not perfect. It's a work in progress. It's cleaner. It's a lot cleaner than it used to be. And before you get to the fold of the page, there's really only two options to take, because I want you to pick one. And I want you to go through and find content that's catered to you. So if it's a little bit busy and like not pretty and it's just not aesthetically friendly, then it's a turnoff, right? It's just harder to go through the page. And I know that one of my old scheduling softwares, and they were a great scheduling software, so I don't want to bash them at all, but I stopped using them because some people went through there and it looked like they jumped from a pretty page to like almost like a Reddit. It was just like very HTML-y, like text, like no frills. It didn't look trustworthy. So they didn't want to put their credit card in. So we changed platforms, made it prettier, something friendlier, you know. Last thing on this is that the website in good health is that linking. And this has been really a challenging topic for me to talk about. And I know that some of you have probably experienced me on Facebook talking about linking or backlinking or hot links or I don't know that, like, I've learned it as a backlink for I don't know how long, so it's hard for me to remember exactly the term that everyone else uses. But basically, if your site, like, so Google is, or sorry, the internet is like a web, all right? The World Wide Web. It's spider's web. Okay? In the center are the sites that are really popular and rank well, and everything is attaching to it. It's directing to it, and it's showing that it's the center and it's trustworthy. So these sites rank better, okay? The more sites that you have directing and telling the search engines that you're better, or that you're trustworthy, the better you rank. And just to be clear, it doesn't take away, or at least from what I know, it doesn't take away from your site to direct people to another site unless it's an untrustworthy site. So I wouldn't link to somebody who is a sleazeball. I would link to someone that I trust and know. And just like in all the podcasts that I do, when I have a guest that I like and trust and they're suggesting something, I link to them. And I show the user that they can find that information there. So this helps them, it doesn't hurt me, and it builds a better pathway through my site to their site so that people can get what they need, right? So linking is necessary. If you live in isolation on the internet, you're not going to get anywhere, and no one's going to find your stuff. So this has been a really challenging topic to me, again, because through Facebook, I've talked to people about backlinking, and it's really confusing to them because they're like, what is this thing? Is it, like, can you describe it? Like, what exactly are you looking for? And it's like, all I'm looking for is that, you know how, like, you're on a website and there's a bunch of text? There's like a story about you and like how you learned how to do this certain technique, and a lot of times you'll reference the site that shows the technique, and it'll be blue. That's all it is, all right? So actually, and on that note, if you guys have enjoyed this podcast, can you email me or reach out to me on Facebook and ask me how the way you can get back to me best today. And it'll take you like 2 minutes. Please text me, email me, Facebook me, and ask what you can link to on your site, and I will direct you through it. If you want more information on how to improve your site, I'll give you insight on that. These links for me are good as gold. Okay, my goal in life with this podcast, with the website, with the YouTube content, is to get people to find it. All right. You guys are helping people find it if you link to me. So please email me, text me, call me, whatever. I will spend as much time as needed to help you through this stuff, and just link to me. That's all I'm asking for, okay? I believe that if we're good healthcare providers and we want to rise to the top, we need to support each other. And the more that we link to each other and reference each other's good information, like maybe you don't have an article on a knee, but you like mine. And I don't have an article on a neck, but I like yours. Reference people where they need to go. Like, that's really what the internet searching is all about. And that's how we can help each other out a little bit. The last thing is, by the way, my email. It's seb@p2sportscare.com. seb@p2sportscare.com. Hook me up. Talk to me. Let's talk. Number 6. Your website is like a spouse. Don't ignore it. Okay. So I know a lot of people who build the site and they let it sit for years and it just rots. It literally rots, okay? You need to keep it in good health. Like I said before, you need to update all your stuff, make sure everything's relevant, make sure your site speed's good, update things, and as you learn things, put some effort in the site. So there's constantly these little spiders and they're little robots that crawl throughout the site and they're looking for new stuff, all right? Update your site. pay attention to it, nurture it. All right. It really, you can tell on the other side. And I've looked at a lot of colleagues' pages and just to get ideas of what to do and what not to do. And I found some really amazing pages, and you can tell they really care. Like, you can tell they paid attention to their site. You can tell when the doctor wrote it. You can tell when they've divvied it out to someone else. Like I've seen, there's a really common, there's a service that a lot of chiropractors use for their website. They don't really, I don't even think they own their site anymore. They just have this place do the site, and you can tell all the places have been done by the same company because they look very generic and crappy. All right, you can tell, and I think patients can tell too. So make sure your site is legit, and you take care of it. Don't ignore it. Now, those are the major parts that I wanted you to remember. So again, I'll recap again. Your website's like an employee; you don't have to pay it. So build it like make a little employee. Okay. Number 2, your website can streamline your business and keep your overhead down, which I think we all know that low overhead is the key to surviving in business. Your website can help you acquire new patients more than you ever thought possible. Your website does not have to be very large. I'd say probably, under 10 pages will still work okay. Your website needs to be in good health, and treat it like a spouse. You shouldn't ignore it. Now, again, if you guys want help with this stuff, just email me. And I'm thinking that what can I do for you guys that will be helpful to the masses? Again, that if you've been following along, you know that I believe in repurposing content when all possible. So I think maybe what we can do is that if you have a site that you've had for about a year, maybe half a year, or you've spent a lot of time working on it and you have all the pages built out already, why don't you email me? And if you're interested in me doing a kind of a walkthrough, and we'll do a screen share, we'll look at your site and we'll record all of the thoughts and communication that we have on this, and maybe ways to improve it, what looks great, what looks bad, and everyone else can learn from this. And maybe what we'll do, I'm open to doing this about 5 times, I think, because I think there'll probably be about 30-minute calls, maybe even longer. And we'll record them, put them on YouTube, let everyone access them just so they can see, and we'll go behind the scenes on this stuff. Only email if you have a WordPress site. I don't know how to maneuver Wix and Squarespace. So I'll probably look like a complete idiot on the back end. But if you let me navigate the site for you and just check things out, we'll blur all the stuff. If there's privacy issues, we'll blur it out. But I think that might be the most helpful to everybody. We can kind of leave that as a resource. So if you're interested in actually getting your website critiqued by me, just email me. Again, seb@p2sportscare.com. That's seb@p2sportscare.com. And we'll check it out. The first 5, okay? That's it. And again, no starter sites because there won't be anything to really to analyze on it. Back on the things, if you guys want to get back to me a little bit, please do reference maybe one of these podcasts in your patient resource area. What's your favorite one? Did you like talking about cervical spine issues? Did you like the one we had with Stuart McGill when I asked him some of the basics that patients will ask about low back pain? If you don't have a website, share it on Facebook and Twitter. Those are okay too. So those all help ranking. So although I'm helping you guys with your websites today, I would love if you help me back a little bit too. That'd be amazing. It's the easiest way to get back to me. If you guys are still looking for that book for the I Will Beat Back Pain, Getting into a Winning Mindset for Recovery, I will put a link in the show notes as well. And lastly, make sure you leave people better than how you found them, and date an Eagle Scout. I'll talk to you guys next week. We'll jump more back on the clinical bandwagon.